Oh,
Good morning. It's March 21st, 2026. Happy spring equinox. We're into Aries season now, the time of kind of new beginnings, moving forward with courage, fresh new starts. And I'm really grateful to be joined with the Bikers Against Trafficking, two guys that we'll interview in just a moment. For those of you who don't know me, it's Dr. Dina Churchill, and I'm a retired chiropractor, writer, wellness astrologer, and health innovator. And today I am really, truly grateful because this conversation matters. And I'm honored to speak with the president and the vice president of Bikers Against Trafficking in Nova Scotia. And this is an international movement. So it began in 2016 in Florida. That's what I found on the internet. And it's a movement that refuses to look away. Because for me, personally, it's not just information, it's a lived awareness. And there was a time in my life, personally, where I experienced exploitation, um, out of control, harm, untouched. It touched both my personal and professional life. So something at that point shifted in me, and I began to see things differently. So in the stories that people whispered to me, in the pain that people carried, in the unexplained injuries, in the medical cover-ups, in the quiet signals that go often unnoticed, in men, in women, and in children. And here in Nova Scotia, being a port city and a coastal province, we see that we're connected by movement routes and systems, that can be used for good or harm. So, in this conversation today, I'd like it to be about truth, about awareness, about bringing light to something that survives in silence and in the shadows. It's about asking what we can do, how we can protect, how we can support, and how we can stand with courage without turning away. So, most importantly, how do we remind those who may be caught in these circumstances, or someone who, a family member who sees somebody caught in these circumstances, that they're not alone and that there's people who care, that there's the resources to help and to heal, and that there's a way forward. And this is why we're here, really, to listen, to have these conversations, to learn, to discover maybe new solutions, and to be part of the change. So I just again want to thank you, Bear and Red, so much for being here. Maybe we'll start with Bear, and you can tell me a little bit if I've left out, what details I've left out of the International Association, and maybe a little bit about yourself personally. We'll stick to your biker names for this morning. I would love that. But just tell me a little bit generally, maybe about how you got interested in this organization and in this mission.
sure. The Nova Scotia chapter started, I guess, in August of 25. It was birthed out of our church, Abundant Life in Bible Hill. We are a Christian organization, um, and the president of the Chilliwack chapter was at our church as a guest speaker, and I would say a good majority of the men in our church all ride bikes. So the conversation was brought up around bikers against trafficking. I kind of overheard. I went, that piques my interest a little bit because of what I do professionally. Um, and it kind of started there. The call went out to see if there's any interest in starting a chapter in Nova Scotia. A bunch of us got together and said, "Yeah, let's give it a go and see where we go from here." So we started in August and we have grown substantially with our roles and what we're doing. So just for the international side, I'll just bring up some stuff that you may not be aware of. And I had Doc email me some things some successes that we've done over 2025. So in 2025, BAT in its entirety attended 141 events. We're at 43 speaking opportunities. They were on 3 podcasts, have given away uh, 1,029 hours in trauma counseling, valued around $128,000. Chapter and task force meetings were 28. Court appearances and reports are 5. Extractions were 9. TV interview newspapers were 2. Housing provided to 421 people. Christmas events provided over 1,200 gifts. And they estimate around in 2025, 41,100 people were brought to the awareness about that.
Wow. And that again, for people who are listening, is Bikers Against Trafficking.
Trafficking. Yeah.
But that is amazing. So it really spans over a large range of our society. We're looking at the news and healing, right? The trauma counseling you mentioned, the media, podcasts, and speaking opportunities, and housing. And so it's an amazing service that you're providing. So thank you for sharing that. How about you, Red? How did you get involved? And are you part of the same church?
Yeah, so I'm a part of the same church. I actually, when Matt was down here, the speaking at our church the first time was the first time I'd ever met him, and he loves to travel. I mean, he's not just he doesn't just wear his vest when he's biking. He loves traveling with it everywhere he goes. He's spreading that, and that was one of the first things I pointed out. I'm like, what in the world is that? That looks like something I'd love to be involved with. I think the first time I really kind of started thinking about trafficking as a problem it was a movie that came out a couple of years ago called The Sound of Freedom. And I had 2 young kids at the time, and it really gripped me hard. I mean, just kind of the way that movie portrays things out is a lot of these problems. A lot of the reason this issue is, I think, is so big is because it's not really thought of. It's most people don't really think of this issue.
Mm.
And since that movie, I've never again let my kids walk into a public bathroom without checking the stalls first. So an organization like this pops up. As a Christian man in a Christian organization, if I can mix ministry and helping people with riding a motorcycle, oh, I'm all in.
Uh,
And
I'm
I
all
like
in.
what you said, Red, about Bear wearing the vest, because really you're advertising. It's your own advertising in writing, and you're
Mm.
kind of picking up people all the time, who are interested perhaps in the organization just because you're visible, I guess is what I'm looking for.
That's right. We've had a couple even just local chapters that are local chat writing groups that are not affiliated with us, but just the message that we're spreading in the community. We've had people asking for support merch and that kind of thing. So this is definitely something that a lot of people gravitate towards. I mean, we just came back from a family vacation down south, and same thing. I mean, people that haven't seen the patch, haven't even don't even recognize the brand, but are coming up to me. I had 2 people just in the week that I was on the road come up to me, tap me on the shoulder, and say, where can I get a hoodie like this? I want to be a part of what you're doing. Yeah.
And where could people get a hoodie, or where could they find you?
Well, what I've told most people is, so I was down in the South, so there's a chapter in South Carolina as well. And mostly what I would say is go to the chapter directory on the website. If you just Google bikersagainsttrafficking.org, go to the chapter directory, and there's a list of chapters that are active. Any of those, click on any of those links, you'll be emailing the president. And so most of these chapters, I'm sure the president would love to hook you up with some kind of support merch. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And I think it's a timely birth of your association, not only because Nova Scotia is probably one of the most problematic places in Canada for sex trafficking anyway, but also with the release of the Epstein files. You
Mm.
mentioned the movie, but now with the Epstein file release, it's like a lot of people are becoming aware of how deep those roots travel.
Yeah.
So, maybe if you'd started 5 years ago, you wouldn't have had the recognition, or people wouldn't have understood the importance of it. Do you feel, this is for you feels timely now?
I think God's timing is perfect.
Good answer.
I think that's the
Hmm.
best way to put that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If this had started 5 years ago with a bunch of guys, maybe it would have taken off. But again, being a Christian organization, we fully believe that God's timing is 100% perfect, and He birthed this out of this church for this time. And it just so happens to coincide with a bunch of world events that have transpired
Right.
over the last several months.
Okay, good. Okay, that's good. Frame it that way. The other thing I want to mention is like there's a lot of people, including myself, to have distrust in like the authorities. And years ago, I actually reported a sex trafficking case to the police, and they told me that they couldn't do anything unless they had live video. And I had hired a private investigator, and it was a very stressful time for me, and I was really concerned about my own life at that point because I was trying to get information that the authorities are requiring in order to, go that extra step. That same case was also involved with a child, what I thought was child beating. It was whipping. As a chiropractor, I was privy to that information and reported it to CPS. And the perpetrator emailed me and told me, he said, CPS will bury that claim. I've had many claims against me before, and they did. I kept calling and trying to reference. So I'm sure there's other people that have had that disconnect in seeing something, wanting to report it, but then kind of hitting a brick wall with whatever authority. So the benefit I see with you is that you may be able to act as a liaison, between, say, the family or the reporting person and the authorities. But how do people, I know this is maybe going to be offensive, but how do people have trust in you? How do they know that you're not part of, I mean, I appreciate that you're part of Christ Church and that is, but how would you say, what information would you share that would lend support in who you are as an organization, both provincially and internationally?
It's a great question. Um, I think the when you look at us, we do kind of present as bikers. We wear the vests, we ride big bikes, they're loud bikes. But I think there's a fascination to that world, right? If you look at a couple other organizations that kind of do the same thing, BACA being one, Bikers Against Child Abuse, they have that you can approach us at any time mentality, and we are the same. You can come to us at any time. We have open arms. We're all fathers, we're all mothers. I mean, we're not just guys, we have girls in our organization as well. We tend to be as approachable as possible. um I guess that's the
Yeah.
best way to put that right now. The fact that you know, and we do liaison with law enforcement quite a bit, especially me.
Can I ask your backgrounds, or would you prefer not? It's up to you. Whatever you feel is safe and effective, to use a colloquial phrase. What if you prefer not to say that? That's fine.
Um,
You've worked around law enforcement. Would you say that, both of you? Like
I have, yeah.
No, me.
no?
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fine.
I let's put it this way. I'm heavily involved with law enforcement and
Okay.
have contacts.
The good side.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to say that. No, so the other thing, this again might sound like a bit of a strange question, but have you ever thought about networking with the Hells Angels? I mean, I know they're listed as kind of a criminal organization, but that's a biker brotherhood. And regardless of whatever other criminal activities they're involved in, I mean, nobody wants to see a child being abused or sexually molested. So I think they could, maybe help police the pedophiles in their own kind of bad guy way. What do you think about that idea?
My understanding is that we we get along with all the other clubs. We do not want to be a hindrance to anybody. We respect all the other clubs. We are not a MC. We do not wear a three-piece patch. There is a lot of differences between the Hells Angels and ourselves. Our patch is purchased. It's not earned. And there is some criteria that you have to be to fill out to become part of our organization. Um, Money is exchanged with us, so
Mhm.
everything is purchased, as opposed to being through their process.
Mhm.
As for working with them, you know, that's a tough one. I'm not really sure what they would be about on that. But I mean, let's put it this way. Anybody that wants to save a child, in my
Mhm.
On
mind,
your team.
is a friend.
100%.
Yeah, that's how I feel right now too.
They're a
It's
friend. If you want to save a child, you want to save somebody that's involved with human trafficking, you're a
Mhm.
friend. I don't care what
Yeah.
you wear.
Yeah, oh
At the
that
end of the day, it doesn't matter to me.
yeah, that's great. Oh, that makes me want to cry. That's sweet and true. So maybe my next interview will be with the Hell's Angel. Uh, what about the bigger picture here in Nova Scotia? I mean, what do you envision or what ideas do you have? Let's start here first before we go to the bigger picture. Let's say somebody contacts you today and says, my child or my family are involved in a sex trafficking ring. I can see that they're lying to me. They have unexplained injuries. They look like they're being controlled. I've tried reporting it to the police, and they say they don't have enough evidence. What can I do? What would you advise?
So we do have access again to counseling. I think getting that out there first and trying to protect the victim at this point in time is paramount. Obviously, getting the information relayed correctly to law enforcement and the human trafficking unit within Nova Scotia, which is quite large. I'm not sure if you're aware of how big the HT unit is in the province, but it is provincial, with many police departments having their own liaison officers. Um, Getting the information to them in as much detail as possible helps the investigation because it may not be just that one child, it may not be that one victim or that one trafficker. It could be a larger thing that information is the missing piece. So we try to relay all the information as best we possibly can to law enforcement. From our standpoint, we're support. We're here to make sure you have the proper counseling. If you can't afford it, we can try to provide counseling for you. We do have the resources for that. If it comes to the point where there is charges laid against the trafficker and the trafficker is going to trial, we will support that victim. We will show up and be in the galley and be there for that victim, just so they see a support system with them. Because at the end of the day, support and getting them through the trauma is a big part of this. So that's kind of where we want to be. And of course, the education side, where we're
Mhm.
just starting up in Nova Scotia, we're still building those contacts. I just had a meeting on Thursday with another contact that's going to be beneficial to helping us create a bigger organization, a bigger uh, net of where we can put everybody if that comes to where we need to be.
And how are people, I mean, is it a psychologist that does the counseling, or if somebody has counseling skills, is that something that they could offer to your association?
If somebody had counseling skills, we would definitely look at them. I've got a list of psychologists that I could easily branch out to and say, listen, this is the situation. Are you willing to take this party on? Just let me know what the cost is, and I'll see if we can bounce it through us. Um,
And that's really admirable. How are you financially supported? Like how can you do that? That because a psychologist is like $250 an
They're
hour.
they're they're absolutely expensive. Yeah. So we do a lot of fundraising. So as a national, there's a fundraising pool. So if you actually go to the website, bikersagainsttrafficking.org,
Yeah.
the first thing that pops up is donate.
Yes.
So that's where all of the funding goes through to national. So if we get into a situation, if my understanding is that we can branch out, we can reach out to them and say, listen, this is the situation that we're in. We need some financial support, and we'll have it. There is money set aside for all of this. So a lot of it, a lot of fundraising takes place, and that's something that we're going to get involved with here in the very near future. Again, we're baby, we're since August, so we're trying to get our feet wet, and things are rolling quite rapidly on us here.
And that organization, has pretty deep roots in Nova Scotia. And I had um, interviewed privately a sex trafficking victim who was trafficked on the trains in Nova Scotia years ago. And he said, you don't know. There's judges and politicians and police. And he said there's a whole network, and that's how they control the system. Because if somebody gets a charge, they get that judge, they get that police officer, in order to kind of capture the person in the system. So I really admire that you're kind of jumping into this, the hottest place in Canada, really, or maybe in the world, for this sex trafficking industry. And, it's like a David and Goliath scenario, right? It's just an old network that we're trying to shed light upon. Are you afraid?
No.
Mhm. Um, So we mentioned how people get involved. So the BAT website, the Bikers Against Trafficking, and you can donate there. Also, they can look for the Nova Scotia chapter to connect with you. Um, what else do we need to cover if somebody's listening to this right now? To
If they want to, there's a couple ways to get a hold of us directly.
Mhm.
You can get a hold of us on Facebook. Right now, we're primarily on Facebook, haven't branched out to Instagram just yet. The other way to get hold of us is info@batnovascotia .ca, and that'll go right directly to me, and I will obviously reach back.
So maybe what I'll do after we finish this video, if you could send me, because we've been in conversation for a few weeks and you have my email address and
Yep,
kind of know my story a little bit. But if you could send me all those contacts of how
sure.
people can reach you or websites or whatever, what I'll do is this video is being recorded and it'll be uploaded onto my channels. And then below in the comments, if you're watching this, the recorded version, you can check the comments and I'll put the BAT resources and websites underneath so you can know how you can help out. Um, how about you, Red? You haven't said too much. Anything else that you'd like to add? I mean, you mentioned that your family inspires you towards this, and that is, I think when you have a personal investment, and realize that we're all in it together, right? It gives you kind of inspiration and energy. Um, how do you envision kind of your position as the association grows?
Well, I mean, anything I can do to, I think the big thing for the thing that we it really gripped me from the beginning was just how little light is shed on this thing. I mean, a lot of yes, absolutely. We want to try and free people that are already being trafficked, that are already in the industry. but at the same time raise awareness. I mean, we just did one. We were just at a at an event in Westville not long ago. Again, we had victims of the industry that spoke, and it's very enlightening and ways to. I mean, the speaker at that event, she really kind of focused in on even talking to grandparents when you're taking your kids out. Like, there's a lot of ways to kind of deflect, or a lot of ways to keep people from entering the system to begin with. I mean, here, a lot of the stuff that she brought up, I wouldn't even have really thought of, like just for, like I said earlier, checking bathroom stalls. Like there's a lot of little things in how these predators grab victims to begin with. So any amount of light that we can shed on the problem at the front end obviously is going to affect the system on the back end, where you've got people. I think that's the main problem, is that people don't actually see this, or they don't recognize this as big a problem as what it actually is, just because it's not being talked about. And from where I am, I'm obviously not as involved in law enforcement and rescuing people that are already involved, but I want to do everything I can to shed light on the problem before our kids become victims to begin with. Yeah. And another quote that I was talking to talking to Bear just before we got on here. A patch that I'd like to get designed was out of that movie, a quote that says, "God's children are not for sale." And
Yeah.
I love that. That's always kind of stuck with me. Like, how can we keep kids out to begin with, things to look for? I mean, I drive through town and I'll see a 7, 8 year old walking down the street from the bus by themselves, and it grinds me. Like, people need to understand that the cost, or the price for a head to move a child from one spot to another, $75,000. It's a matter of picking a kid up, carrying them a kilometer down the street to a drop-off point, and that's the going rate to pick a kid up to drop them off. So how quickly can't that be done, because of because people don't realize that this is a problem. Nobody's talking about it. So
Yeah.
that, yeah, as far as law enforcement goes, there's only so much I can do without becoming a criminal myself. So if I can at least shed light on and raise awareness for parents that have kids, and how easily this is, your kids could potentially get dropped into the system just because you look the other way for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
That's where
thank
I'm
you.
at.
Thank you. And you know what? That when I asked about how can people trust in you is when, when you're speaking truth, people feel it, right? Like
Mm,
what you just said, it's a truth. And what you said earlier, Bear, about, anyone who's protecting kids is your friend kind of thing.
right.
That's a truth that, we can feel in our heart. And you mentioned about kids, the whole Jack and Lily disappearance is very concerning. And I've been asking
Mhm,
a lot of
mhm.
questions on my social media about that, because I had people contact me and say, there was a van that was at their house the night that they disappeared several times. And so there's something fishy about that. So I didn't realize that the cost of a child was 75,000, you said?
That's what the movie was portraying. The Sound of Freedom. I don't know if that was local, but that's what he was saying. The cost to pick a kid up is in the tens of thousands of dollars, and it's most of the time it can be a 25, 20, 30 minute ordeal. And it's, again, the person picking the kid up, dropping them off, their hands are free of it. In 15, 20 minutes, you get paid and you move on. Yeah.
Wow. That is pretty amazing. And I love that you mentioned about how we prevent it, because I think I wrote a story and sent you on my healthtruth.blog, and that was my story. Is
Mhm.
that the dating site is how I, was introduced to this man who came into my life and just kind of tore our whole life apart, basically. And I just trusted the person. But, having maybe some stories of how people got trapped, like you said, might just help other people have a wider vision of what's going on and how to prevent it. So if trust is broken, I think I found this. I don't know if I found this on your website or one of the sex trafficking websites, but they say to report through multiple channels, like there's protection. So if you run into a brick door at, I don't know, Child Protective Services or whatever, maybe the family doctor or the psychologist or the Bikers Against Trafficking, or they say to report through multiple channels. Is that something that you encourage as well?
I think I'd have to agree with that.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Um, you brought up child family services, and the one thing this was brought to my attention from what's going on in PEI right now. I'm dealing with a situation over there in PEI where the mother of the child has now got new legislation going forward to assist police in bringing a child home who's over the age of 13. I don't know if you're aware, but in Nova Scotia, if the child is 13 years old and they say, I'm not going home, the police or CPS, CAS have no recourse in making sure that child goes home. So basically, they're out on their own doing whatever they want. And that's where a lot of the stuff can start. So what's happening in PEI is that legislation is going forward that if you are under the age of 18, I think that's where it is, or 16, the police can actually force you to go home and help you and like say bring you back home and try to get you out of the whatever situation you're in. And again, I'm dealing with a situation in PEI right now where it started with a child and a child. The child victim was introduced into the situation by another child of the family that's trafficking.
Right.
So they're using their own kids
To pull them.
to perpetrate and get other children involved with this situation.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the mother's like, we got to do something because the police say they can't take my child home. Well, their
Hmm.
child is being abused in another part of the town, another part of the province. So
Right.
now what this legislation will do is, okay, I know where the child is. The police can go there, grab that child, and bring them back home.
Okay.
So there is things that are slowly starting to become easier for police to intervene now.
Hmm.
Now that hopefully, and I brought that up in our meeting in Trenton in January.
Hmm.
I brought that up, and apparently there were some government officials that were at that meeting that have brought this to the premier's attention. Hopefully, this will start the ball rolling in Nova Scotia. I believe it's in Ontario that is put in place. Police can bring you home.
Hmm.
So that's just another tool for the police to assist with HT.
Hmm. Assuming home is safer than wherever they are.
So, and again, here we are with the other situation because I dealt with another situation where the victim was actually being trafficked by the parents,
Yes, that's what I was thinking when you were saying that. And
right?
if the police who are maybe in the trafficking circles are involved, it could be just kind of precipitating and keeping them kind of, held in their trafficking parents' home.
That's right.
So it can work both ways. But
And
again,
that and that's where the investigation has to become. That's where CPS really has to do their in the system. I'll say it, and I'm just going to say it. The system's broken,
hmm.
right? It doesn't really help the children right now.
Hmm.
There is some things that do help, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, you're like, why is this going on? Why is this going on? Why is this happening? Why is this continuing to happen? And you
Hmm.
look at everything and go, well, the system's broken. No one's
Hmm.
actually protecting the children.
Yes. And you mentioned about, people picking up kids and getting paid. I had a person who was employed with CPS who said that the CPS is rewarded for the number of extractions that they do. So not only are individuals rewarded for taking kids away from their parents, but CPS is also
Yeah.
rewarded by the government officials that are putting
Yeah.
in legislation. So I think, we've got a big job out there to kind of shed light, on that and to act. I think it's great because you guys are acting like as an in-between for that. Another, were you going to say something? Sorry, Red. There you go.
No, no, you're good.
And the other thing I found in research was, for for people who may be reporting, right, these crimes is really to document concerns carefully, dates and times and file numbers. Is there anything else that you would suggest? We talk, multiple channels reporting to contact your association. If somebody right now is being trafficked or is worried about their children, you mentioned the bathroom stalls, but maybe is there a checklist? This would be a good thing. I mean, if it's not on the website now, maybe it would be a good thing to create is like a checklist for parents. Because like the bathroom stalls, that's something that's really important, right? But
Mhm.
had we not done this interview, maybe I wouldn't have even thought of that. But if there was a checklist for parents of protecting your kids against trafficking, do you know if anything exists like that?
So that's a very interesting point. I was introduced to a course about a month and a half ago from Not in My City. I don't know if you're aware of them or not. So you can actually take an introductory human trafficking course through that program, and it's free. Um,
Again,
it's
sorry.
called Not in My City.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll love you to send me that link too, and I'll put it
yeah,
underneath the video. Not in
and
my.
it's Canadian.
Okay.
Um, it's a famous country singer, Canadian country singer that helped develop the program. And it details the basics of what to look for with human trafficking. And I think that's a great start
Mhm.
if you suspect
Yeah.
or think that if you go to the website, take I think it's a half-hour course, it'll show you signs and things to look for. And then you can go check the box, check the box, check the box. Okay, we have a problem. Who do I contact now?
Hmm.
And then
Okay.
you can contact your local law enforcement, us, of course, um, a doctor, family doctor, just somebody you trust.
Thank you for that. Not in my city. I'll make sure I put that in. And what about some more other organizations? You mentioned one earlier, BACA,
Yeah,
BACA.
BACA, yeah. So
And
BACA is Bikers Against Child Abuse.
okay.
Kind of the same
Mhm.
premise. Um, I'm not sure exactly what their philosophy is. I haven't dove into what they are, but um, they're again for protecting children.
Mhm.
So, it seems like there's a lot of biker groups here that could outnumber the bad guys.
And I believe there's probably more than that. I think there's a lot of groups out there, biker groups that are getting on board with this.
The thing when I was researching Hells Angels, because I don't know a lot about them, but when you said biking group, that of course, I guess this is the first thing that comes to people's minds, right? Hells Angels. But it said that the Hells Angels came about after World War II, I think, and they were a lot of ex-servicemen. That's how the organization came on, wanting freedom to ride, and they're anti-establishment, independent. Now, again, I'm not promoting that particular group, but I'm just saying I think there's a lot of people out there that are really wanting to do good
Mm.
and to help. I mean, it's just networking and bringing all those people together with kind of the same mission of protecting our next generation, of humans. That seems like an admirable purpose for anyone. And if we can bring all those people together and form our own kind of protective network for our communities, I think that would be amazing. Something else I found in my research was something called cybertips.ca, where you could
Yes,
take an anonymous tip. Do you trust or recommend that group?
I do. And of course, I'm a firm believer in Crime Stoppers.
Okay.
So that's the other one that you can definitely report human trafficking to as well. And that if it's reported to Crime Stoppers, it'll actually go to the direct police organization within the jurisdiction.
Okay. So let's just say, playing devil's advocate here, that somebody is afraid of the police because maybe they have inside knowledge that this person is involved. Like the person that was in my life had told me that there are police that are involved in this. So, knowing that might create some fear in someone in reporting. How could you report to Crime Stoppers information, dates, people, places, without giving your name or without them tracing a call?
So everything is anonymous on Crime Stoppers. You
But if I
don't have to
call,
give
but if I call
everything.
from my cell phone, they might know my number or have a way of tracing me or whatever.
I don't think that's how it works
Okay.
because you can submit a tip online and
Okay.
you can call from a cell phone, but it just records the information and
Okay.
then it spits it out in a type of a brief, I guess, that would go to the police jurisdiction.
Okay. So Crime Stoppers, cybertips.ca. What about hiring a private investigator? Is that, I mean, I know you have some investigative services in your association, but what about somebody who's concerned about this, hiring their own private investigator, collecting the information and then submitting it to a third party like yourself or the police or
I I personally don't have an issue with that.
Mhm.
Um, I I guess the thing I look at is how I wouldn't want it to see it get muddy.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Um, a file like this needs to be detailed, 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 detailed with proper investigators. To go out and hire a private investigating company, what qualifications, what courses, what information have they obtained through their job that would assist them to get the correct information? You know what I mean?
Well, and
There's,
I'm just theorizing. Maybe there could be an investigator that doesn't have his face, out there that specializes in this area that you might use as a resource, or other people may use as a resource to help you, which is, maybe digging into those shadows and the silence. You need someone whose face is not recognizable, maybe,
Mhm,
to see the parts that they want to keep hidden. Because I'm just thinking, just theoretically, right? Let's just say there's a politician who, is involved in this, and, has, and there's let's not, okay, let's say there's some authority figures that could be controlling the narrative. Let's put it that
right.
way. Let's say there's some controlling figures that could be controlling the narrative. If do we shine light on that narrative, then the whole paradigm collapses instead of trying to get one child out, for example, right? So I'm
Mhm,
just thinking if there were organizations that were all interested, say BAC, BAT, whoever else is interested in protecting children and got together and said, okay, well, I heard that this particular place is a place where children are being trafficked. And instead of trying to save one child, in just shining light on the whole network, anyway, I don't know. It was just an imagination, an imaginary thought that I had that I thought I would just throw out there.
I think the premise of it is good, but again, I would be a little cautious with somebody trying to investigate into something as in depth as what we're dealing with. I
Mhm.
mean, you've got trained investigators through the RCMP, through Halifax Regional Police, through other police jurisdictions within the province that are trained to deal with this. If they get the information from a private investigator that was hired by a family, I guarantee you they're going to look at that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. So we're coming up, we have about 15 minutes left. I just want to kind of summarize where we've been. And then if you think of anything that would be helpful to listeners, either parents, children who might be trapped, families who might be trapped, any advice that you want to give, you'll have time to kind of clue up and give it because you both have been so, generous of your time and your information. I really appreciate you taking this time to join me this morning. So we talked about the organization, how it's internationally just started in 2016, but only in 2025, the Nova Scotia chapter. So we're still building, and you're still looking for support and donations and help. So we'll put your information in there. Um, that it's a timely, I think, for you to kind of, come on the scene and to start, but you're both sounding, very internally inspired, by God and by your family. So that's an admirable purpose, and I really admire that. We're going to put underneath ways that people can get involved, whether it might be in the association, driving with you, maybe. I know my son is a bike rider, and he loves bike riding, and he loves kids. And, I think he might be interested. I actually sent your link to him after we had a conversation. So I'll put that in there. And, from what I know about bikers is that, you love the freedom of the road. And, it's almost like intuitively, right? You're wanting to have others experience that same freedom is kind of my understanding. But, and we also talked about other groups, other groups that you network with, whether it's Bikers Against Child Abuse, Crime Stoppers, cyber tips in doing anonymous tips if you feel like you're trapped in some way. And then we reviewed over if trust is broken. We talked about reporting to multiple channels, documenting carefully, um, hotlines. Um,
There is a human trafficking hotline number.
okay. Is this local,
Um,
Bear, or is it international?
there is a Canadian one, I believe, and unfortunately, I just didn't write it down before I come on.
No worries,
Um,
because any of these links that we've talked about, if you email them to me, then I'll
sure.
have them all attached to this video. So
Okay,
as somebody's listening to the video, they can go down and see the human trafficking hotline link.
perfect. No, we'll do that.
Yeah. Anything else, Red, that you see or that you want to comment on? Um, I don't know, to inspire other bikers to get involved, to inspire families to get involved,
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say parents with young kids, not to drive fear in people's hearts, but educate yourself
Hmm.
because it's a bigger problem than what I mean, my parents always talk about how trusting they were with us riding up and down the streets, and we came home when the lights came
That's
on,
right.
kind of thing, right? I that's not our world anymore. I think people need to realize how bad of an issue this is. Again, like I said, not to drive fear in people, but just educate yourself. As far as joining our chapter for that matter, you don't have to ride to be a part of
Okay.
what we're doing. I mean, some of the women involved that we're trying to get involved with what we're doing here, very often, as far as the safe houses go, the guys on the road doing the quote unquote dirty work of what we're doing. We don't know where the safe houses are,
Sure.
so we get the women involved. And again, I'm not saying this is just a crime against women, but it's predominantly women that are trafficked, which very often would rather gravitate towards. I mean, a bunch of burly dudes show up. That's a scary thing to even if we were to extract somebody, we want to get women involved. You don't have to ride to be a part of that. But yeah, like I said, educate yourself not to drive fear, but to really figure out how do you prevent what little decisions, little things can we do differently to keep as many kids out of the industry as possible.
That's a really good point too. Like if somebody's interested by being a part of your organization, you're actually getting an education in
Yes.
Right.
a way, right, into different cases and how things. So for parents or, for men who really want to make a difference, just being a part of the organization is an education process in itself, isn't
Right.
it?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
How about you, Bear? Do you have anything else you'd like to?
The one thing I want to hit home here is if you suspect that someone's being trafficked or you see what you think may be signs of human trafficking, do not approach the victim. That is very, very important. You need to report what you saw to law enforcement, to the human trafficking tip line, to Crime Stoppers, because if you could put you could put that potential victim or the victim actually in more danger if you approach that person. So we recommend that if you suspect someone's being trafficked, you know someone's being trafficked, or you see what you think is a human trafficking situation, do not approach. Please just contact your local human trafficking unit, local law enforcement, Crime Stoppers, cyber tips, whatever the case may be, and report as much detail as you possibly can. When, where, who you think they are, if you know names, because that'll help the investigators potentially look at video surveillance and other things if it's in an open area. So that's one thing that I want to make sure that's clear. Do not approach what you think may be a victim or who you think is a victim of human trafficking or a potential victim of human trafficking.
And
Please report it.
I've done that in the past, and I think I've caused the person more harm in generally wanting to help. How can I
Yes.
help you? But they
Yeah.
can't tell you how to help them, or might
No.
be,
No.
killed probably. So they can't really offer, information and but I guess in my line of work, I was needing to ask questions like where did the injury occur? How did it come on? In order to make a diagnosis, I have to go over that. Um, and in the case of the child, like I said, when I did report it to CPS, it got swept under the rug. And
Mhm.
the person who I imagine that did this crime told me that they would. So I was left sort of like just doing the best that I could. I reported it to CPS and the police, but that child still went to, I can't say too much about the case, but it wasn't looked after and the file disappeared. And even after I called and gave the file number, it was switched to another CPS unit and then it switched to another. It went three times to different places and still got buried. So I think, I don't know, as a practitioner, instead of, on the other side, what advice do you have to a doctor who suspects this, who sees an unexplained injury or a burn or something on a child and they go to CPS and they get stonewalled? What's the next level of help that they could offer?
I would suggest going to your local um, law enforcement with that information. I know for a fact that police take child abuse very, very seriously and will investigate it to its fullest.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So we're just got 5 minutes left. Any other final closing remarks from
So,
either of
yeah, the one thing I just thought of now, human trafficking, when we think of human trafficking, we think of women and children being trafficked, but it's not just that. Human trafficking is also if you have male, female victim who is addicted to a substance and that person wants that substance or needs that substance and they go to the person that's providing that substance, but they don't have money and they're forced to perform acts of whatever it may be, that is still human trafficking. So human trafficking is a lot broader than just a child being abducted or a female being abducted or moved from place to place. It actually is involved with drug dealers, can be traffickers, just for the simple fact of, well, you don't have money to pay for that today, then you're going to do this. That is still human trafficking in the definition. So that's something that people don't really realize that I want to get out there as well. That if you see a child, and I deal with a lot, that are going to a certain place to get drugs, well, they don't have money. How do you think they're going to get their dope? Right? So that's something that people need to realize too, that human trafficking just isn't trafficking moving from place to place. It's just that if you can't afford your drugs or alcohol, whatever the case may be, you're performing acts or doing stuff for that, that's still classified as trafficking.
And something else when you said that, because it's great that we have this kind of organic conversation, but when you said that, I think I seen something on your website about organ, black market organ sales or donation or something. That's part of it too, yes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So,
This goes a lot deeper than just sex trafficking.
right.
There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes with different aspects of trafficking. Yeah,
And you're bikers against trafficking, whether it's uh, kids, humans, organs, whatever that
yeah,
is. They're using humans as a vehicle
that's
for the
right.
transport of some sort of criminal activity. Is that kind of a definition?
I would say we're bikers against trafficking. I mean, it's human trafficking, so anything of a human, I would say that's what we're fighting against.
Yeah. How about you, Red? Anything to close? We've got a few minutes left.
No, I think we've covered most everything. Yeah, I hope this has been educational even on my side, but I hope this gets a lot of people's attention. And thank you so much for what you do
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
The time that you spend on this type of thing, it's inspiring. You're inspiring us as well as I hope we inspire you to do what you do.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. That opens my heart too. It's the conversations, right? Because everybody has a different perspective. So bringing together, right, people from different disciplines, really we get to see a bigger picture, and then we can discover what a greater solution is. So, I'm grateful for you guys too, and I hope this is not going to be your last conversation. Maybe we can bring in a few more. Actually, I think about that. Maybe a few more biker groups. In a Zoom like this, but have back, Bikers Against Child Abuse. Maybe I could find a Hell's Angels somewhere. I don't know, but to have kind of a shared vision, and maybe other people can offer some solutions too. So thank you again.
Yeah.
Happy equinox. Equinox, right? Equal days and equal nights is a good time to kind of have
Right.
these conversations, right? Where there's unity and peace and love and shared vision, I think is where I am right now. So thank you again, guys. So I'll sign out by saying this is Dr. Dina with the Bear and Red, inviting you to reach for the stars, envision and achieve your personal best. And most of all, enjoy the journey. This is Dr. Dina signing out.